there's been a little bit of good and a whole lot of bad for the Phillies in this series against the Reds. How about game one? Jimmy Rollins, a two-run home run. It was the first home run for the Phillies that was not a solo shot in 16 straight. Rollins gave the Phils the lead, but later on in the ballgame, Joey Votto tied it up against Antonio Bastardo. Was 3-3, but then the Phils made some contact in their half of the eighth inning. That ground ball off the bat of Dominic Brown brought home Michael Young, and then the Phillies were able to add one more before Jonathan Papelbon got the last out. He got Zach Cozart to pop out to Chase Utley, and the Phillies had taken game one. Game two, totally different story. Bronson Arroyo somehow has figured out the Phillies over his last three starts. Yesterday, he was magnificent. He was in the 60s with his pitch count into the sixth inning. And then Kyle Kendrick gave up a three-run home run to Ryan Hanigan, and that seemed like the only runs the Reds would need. But Joey Votto and the rest of the Reds offense decided to tack on 7 more. Votto goes deep against Chad Durbin, and the Reds had shut out the Phillies. It was the 6th shutout already for the Phils this year, which matches last season's total. So now the Phils, in front of the crowd here at Citizens Bank Park, will look to win the series against the Cincinnati Reds. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom McCarthy, along with Chris Wheeler. That's right. The Phils, if they win today, could win the series against the Reds and have a positive homestand. It hasn't been all that positive, though, against these teams from Ohio.
No, they're not going to win the series against Ohio, that's for sure. They really have struggled with Cleveland Indians and the Cincinnati Reds. And not only the wins and losses, look at the domination as far as the stats go. Outscored 61-21. The batting average, the ERA is ridiculous. A lot of home runs. This guy right here, one of the premier players in the league, was on base 6 straight times yesterday. And as we show you these highlights, watch where he hits the baseball. Yeah, it's all over the place. One goes to left. Now, just for good measure, he's going to hit a double into left center field. And now, well, why don't we turn on one and hit one towards right field? And Joey Votto will mix in his walks, too. Then he decides to go out to dead center field. It's shown the home run where he hit the right center the other night. He leads the league in walks. He has just tremendous numbers. Some people say he walks too much. I don't know. Be fun to watch a guy play baseball the way that this guy can play and put up the numbers. He has a 7-game hitting streak going right now at a cool 517. Joey Votto right now one of the hottest players in baseball and one of the best players. And you got to throw in his defense, too. He's really good at first base.
Very good defensive first baseman. In fact, he and Chu, the center fielder for the Reds, have gone back and forth for the top spot in on-base percentage this entire year. All right, today you've got Homer Bailey against Jonathan Pettibone. Pettibone has pitched very well for the Phillies.
Well, he keeps the Phillies in the games, Tom. They won 4 games that he started so far. He has 3 wins. Here's his last start against the Indians the other night when he pitched into the 7th inning. And he does very well controlling his fastball up and down, in and out. He'll also throw a breaking ball and a changeup. He gets some men on base once in a while, but he always seems to just stay out there, keep his expression, keep his cool, and pitch through it. He gets a double play ball. Charlie comes and gets him in that game, and the Phillies would win one of the rare games they win against a team from the state of Ohio. Homer Bailey, his last time out against the Phillies, this guy was just tremendous. He struck out 10. He went 8 innings. This was the game that eventually rain would halt, and that they would finish it the next day, and the Phils would lose it 1-0. But Bailey has a fastball 92-97, breaking ball, split finger fastball. A guy that has been a problem for the Reds for a number of years. When he first came up, because evidently he wasn't real coachable, he has changed. Guy is a premier pitcher right now and part of a tremendous Cincinnati Reds rotation. Here are the 2 starters and what they have done so far. So we mentioned Pettibone keeps the Phillies in games. Homer Bailey's only at 2-3, but his numbers are really good. Look at his walk and strikeout ratio, outstanding.
Yeah, he strikes out 1 batter per inning pitched. That's been his M.O. Well, the mouth that roared got a chance to sign some autographs earlier today. Pretty cool to see Dallas Green cited his new book. Lineups and first pitch for the ballpark when we return. Phillies baseball is We're ready to go this afternoon here at Citizens Bank Park. The Reds and the Phillies, the final game of this 3-game series, and Shin-Soo Choo will lead it off for the Reds. And the first pitch of the day is in there for a strike. So we're underway, and the count is no balls and 1 strike. Choo's had himself a good road trip for the Reds. The games against the Marlins and the Phillies. He's 7 for 19. And he hits a little dribbler back towards shortstop, and Rollins just throws him out. Take a look at the rest of the Reds starting lineup. It's brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports. Cozart's coming up now, then Joey Votto and Brandon Phillips. Jay Bruce bats 5th, Todd Frazier 6th. Xavier Paul's in left field, he'll hit 7th. Hannigan and Bailey are 8 and 9. And they'll face Jonathan Pettibone, of course. I should say it's Cesaris Torres that is batting 2nd for the Reds. He's Torres, a 167 hitter, no home runs, 2 RBIs. And he takes on the outside corner. It's 0-1.
Torres, a switch hitter, been around for a few other teams, and giving Cozart this game off, at least as a starting player.
Yeah, Dusty Baker hasn't changed too much of his lineup, as you see Jonathan Pettibone's numbers.
No, he's given Xavier Paul a start in left field. He has 5 left-handed hitters in the lineup today against the right-hander Pettibone.
These Torres has played in 1 other ball game on this road trip. He's 1 for 4. At the knees, and it's 2-2.
Here's our scouting report from Budweiser on Jonathan. Really spots his fastball well. Real good command with it, and he's had that right out of the chute here.
There's a floater out toward left, and Dominic Brown had East Torres played perfectly for the 2nd out. Jonathan Pettibone, when he threw his bullpen session this past week, it was the day of the Phillies Festival to benefit ALS, and I was down on the field as we were taping an installment of Charlie Manuel's TV show. Rich Doobie came walking in, and he was ecstatic about the bullpen session that Jonathan Pettibone threw. So we're just fine-tuning some things, getting him down in the strike zone a little bit more, but he was really happy with the way Pettibone threw and how much it seemed he was absorbing in the conversations they've had.
Well, that's great to hear that he's coachable like that, but when you can spot your fastball the way that he does, it gives you a chance.
A little low, 2-1 Novato.
He's a fastball changeup guy is what he is. He'll throw cutter in there too, but his 2 best pitches are fastball changeup.
Votto's hit it 7 straight. Ground ball right side, make it 8 straight.
Unbelievable. You can't keep him off base. Which brings us up to our Nissan keys to the game, and one of them already is by the board, as you'll see right now, Tom. Control Votto. Well, at least they kept him in the yard.
Kept him away from 2nd and 3rd base.
Yeah, and this is a real challenge for Jonathan Pettibone today, because this is a big-time lineup he's facing.
Well, Votto continues his hot hitting. And with that base hit, Votto's average is up to 350 for the year. Here's Brandon Phillips. Phillips 281 with 7 home runs, 36 runs batted in. And he fouls the first pitch off the mask of Ruiz. It's 0-1.
Pretty neat note they have here today from Elias. In the last 55 years, only 3 other Cincinnati players have reached base safely. It is 6 times and homered in a 9-inning game. And one of them was Pete Rose against the Phillies at Connie Mack Stadium in 1969. Frank Robinson, Sean Casey, the other guys that have done it. But to see Pete on there back in '69 when he was just a really young player.
And then you add Votto's name to that legend, too.
Well, Sean Casey was a great hitter. Frank Robinson in a class all by himself is a tremendous Hall of Fame player and has stayed in the game his whole life. And then Votto.
One ball, 1 strike to Brandon Phillips. And he got him to pop it up. Shallow right field. Utley is out there. And Pettibone has a 14-pitch first inning. No runs, 1 hit, and 1 man left. Under control as usual. We go to the bottom of the first. The Reds nothing. Phillies coming up. Charlie Manuel's lineup. It's brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports. It's Rollins, Revere, and Young, followed by Utley Brown and Lance Nix. In the bottom third of Carlos Ruiz, Freddie Galvis, and Jonathan Pettibone. And they'll face right-hander Homer Bailey. Bailey, the 27-year-old from LaGrange, Texas. He's making his 9th start. They're 5-3 in his game so far. He's 2-3 overall.
He's coming off a 10 strikeout game, threw 125 pitches his last time out in a win. Very good walk strikeout ratio. Our Budweiser scouting report on the Texas native, who wears number 34 in honor of Nolan Ryan. Curve, slider, split, along with a very lively fastball. Phillies have had pretty good luck, although last time he pitched a great game against them to a no decision.
He had 5 games here at Citizens Bank Park. He has an earned run average of 5.92, and he goes soft for Rollins to start the at bat with a splitter, and it's 0-1.
He was a much younger, inexperienced pitcher the time the Phillies hit him around. He's really changed, and he's got a chance to be pretty good.
Rollins sends one toward right center field. Backing up on it is Chu, and he makes the catch. 1 away. 2 pitches, 1 away. That was one of the issues the Phillies had yesterday, is that they did not allow Bronson Arroyo, who was brilliant for the Reds, to really run any deep counts. And Arroyo, for the 3rd consecutive start against the Phillies, 2nd straight this year, kept them as off balance as you can.
Yeah, he got ahead of them real quick and got quick outs, and pitch count was very low. Then he walked a couple guys, and they came and got him.
Ben Revere takes outside.
Ben Revere back in the lineup. Charlie Manuel talking about it before the game. Just trying to do something to get him started. Playing way up at the corners. Oof.
Now Dusty Baker's team comes in to this ball game with a record of 26-17. They're a game and a half out in the Central. Above 500 in his 6th year as the manager of the Reds. And Revere hits one toward right field. It's pretty deep. Bruce, it's over his head, and a one-hop off the scoreboard. Revere on his way to second. He'll stop there. And then Revere has an extra base hit. It's only his 3rd of the year. A one-out double.
That's one of the hardest balls he's hit in the Phillies uniform, because he not only hit it hard, he pulled it to the alley in right center. And Jay Bruce is kind of looking up at the board right now like, well, he wasn't supposed to do that. It looked like it may have been a slider, and it sped his bat up a little bit. But you know, he's had other breaking balls he didn't hit like that, so that's really a good sign. Now Dominic Brown made a big mistake yesterday going to 3rd base. Whether he was safe or out, they were down by 3 runs. You don't go there. And in that case, you're early in the ball. There's no sense in going to 3rd base right there unless you're sure you're going to make it.
Well, that'll bring Michael Young to the plate. Young is 2 for 11 on this homestand. Michael Young has walked 11 times in his last 11 games. Now, included in that was a 3-walk ball game. He takes a curve for a strike. It's 0-1.
That is a good curveball he just threw. That make number 34 proud. The hook that Nola used to throw up there. Some of the other guys that wore that one. Kerry Wood, Clemens, all guys from Texas, right-handers that admired Nolan Ryan growing up.
Yeah, there's a mix of guys throughout baseball. Didn't Josh Beckett at one time wear Nolan Ryan's number?
I don't know. Well, he's now the big Texas right-hander.
Out toward right field. It's not deep. Revere, I don't think, is going to be able to tag. He does tag, and Bruce gets rid of the throw pretty quickly.
Yeah, 1 out, too. He's not going to tag and go to 3rd there unless there's just no play.
Now 2 outs for Chase Utley. Utley batting cleanup today. Josh Beckett did not wear 34. He's worn 61 a couple of different occasions, 21 and 19. He was in the minor leagues. I saw him wear 34. I thought I saw him wear 34 at one point. Utley is 0 for 11 on this homestand. His average at .268, 7 home runs, 24 runs batted in. play him to pull. And he takes inside. It's 1 ball and no strikes.
The runner at second base, Frazier's going to play off the bag, but so he could still get over there.
The Lucky McDonald's Phillies home run jackpot contestant is Brittany Stroop of Pottstown. Phillies hit a home run in today's ball game. Then Brittany will win $100. Brittany, I hope you win $100 right here.
Yeah, be nice.
Inside corner for a strike, 1-1.
Sort of like just like a base hit here too, because you're going to score Ben Revere on any ball to the outfield with 2 outs.
Go, Jake.
And Chase hits it towards center field. Chu started back. Now he comes in. And he makes the catch, and the side is retired. No runs, 1 hit. And 1 man left in scoring position. We're through 1. On to the second. Phillies go back to work defensively. The next road trip, Wednesday the 29th, Thursday the 30th. Tickets can be purchased at Phillies.com. On the 29th, all fans 14 and under receive that for a great giveaway, the W.B. Mason truck. Again, go to Phillies.com to purchase your tickets. The Italian market to happen in place. Some of the Ryan Howard fans found their way out there. Pretty good grub as you go through the marketplace.
That's a famous spot in Philadelphia. Of course, it became very famous in the movie Rocky, when he ran up 9th Street through that market.
Excellent point, Wills. Jay Bruce takes a strike. It's 1 ball and 1 strike.
I usually leave that movie TV stuff up to you, but I remember that.
The Italian Market Festival started yesterday, going on today too. Hope they're able to enjoy it, even with the kind of soupy conditions we have here in Philadelphia.
Well, it's got to smell good, huh?
It's going to smell good and taste good.
Wow.
Jay Bruce has hit it 9 straight ball games. Oh boy, that one sounded like it was going to go far. Revere back to the wall, and it is gone. Well, he's hit it 10 straight. That's his 5th home run. It's 1-0 Cincinnati.
You know, these guys don't hit any cheapies in this series. Well, Hannigan's yesterday was, you know, not a big, but those 2 that Votto hit and that one by Jay Bruce. Wow. You said that sounded like a home run when he hit it. He's a low ball hitter. It was a fastball. Caught a little there. That was in the middle of the plate and down, right in a good hitting area for a left-handed hitter, and he got it.
Now Todd Frazier, the hitter. And Frazier hits one off the end of the bat. It's carried pretty well, though. Nick's going back to the fence, and he makes the catch. He did not hit that on the sweet spot of the bat at all. Shows you how strong he is. And there's one away.
He did. He hit his right on the barrel to Jay Bruce. You talk about sometimes you just hear a sound, you think that's a home run. That's what that sound made off Jay Bruce's bat.
So Pettibone down 1-0 here in the second. And Xavier Paul, who is hitting .261 with 2 home runs and 13 RBIs. We have 2 of the better pinch hitters in the National League starting today. Paul being one, and the other being Lance Nix of the Phillies. Each of these guys have 2 pinch hit home runs this year.
Right. If you want them to be good pinch hitters, they have to play once in a while, get some at bats, and that's what's happening here today.
0-1 the count to Paul. Inside, 1 ball, 1 strike. Ryan Howard getting today off. Nothing wrong with Ryan. He obviously has gone through a little bit of a home run drought since the San Francisco series. Michael Young making his first start over at first base. Not his first start in his career, of course, because he's played all over the place, but his first start this season.
Charlie Manuel wanted to wait for Michael to come in today and to talk to him about it before he put the lineup out, just to say, hey, this is what we want to do today. It was a quick conversation, and then he put the lineup out.
2-2 the count to Paul. And it's low, 3-2. Ryan Hannigan's on deck. And ball 4. Paul's aboard. It's the first walk issued by Pettibone. And that'll bring Hannigan to the plate. What about playing first base for Michael Young? Murph, what did he say about that today?
Well, yeah, you guys talking about a little bit of a different look for Charlie Manuel defensively. Michael Young over at first base, and I was sitting with him right before the game started next to him in the dugout. He was kind of working in his first base glove, and Ben Revere walked over and said, how many times last year did you play first base? And Michael didn't know the answer to that, but I happened to. 41 games in 2011, 36 in 2012, for a total of 77. And I said to Young, I guess it's just like riding a bike for you. He said, well, here's hoping, going out there. So
good pitch by Pettibone. Hannigan pops it up to Utley, and there are 2 outs. Murph, there was a point a couple weeks ago where the Phillies were going on a road trip, and Michael Young really thought about bringing his first baseman's mitt. It was when Ryan Howard was battling that nagging groin injury. Yeah. And Michael knows that Freddie Galvis is an excellent player. And if he could go over to play first base, that would allow Galvis to play third, or Franzen to play third. So he thought about bringing that first baseman with him on the road trip. He decided against it, but he was prepared to start taking some ground balls over there.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Michael Young is, he's always thinking just like that. Where can I help the team? And, you just showed that graphic. He has played everywhere in the infield and played them all very well. I mean, his fielding percentage over at first base is well over 99%. So, he can play the position. It's just been a while for him.
Well, he could have walked over to Pettibone, taken that baseball, and run it back to the first base bag because Homer Bailey had given up on it. And the Phillies get through the top of the second. and gloom. Wake up to a show worth waking up to. It's a fun look at pop culture, headlines, trends, and viral videos. Eye Open, Monday morning starting at 6 on PHL 17. Bottom of the second, Reds up 1-0. Phillies are trying to win today to win the series against the Reds and also have a positive homestand. They split the 2 games against the Indians, and they've split the first 2 here against Cincinnati. Jay Bruce has given the Reds a 1-0 lead thanks to his 5th home run to straightaway center field. Phillies have had a lot of success against the Reds here in this ballpark in recent years. But we showed during the outset their struggles against the state of Ohio.
Yeah, they've had good luck out in their ballpark too in Cincinnati. They played them very well. The Reds are a team that they look like they're just kind of finding their way right now. They are good, and they have a heck of a chance to be in postseason and advance. After what happened to them last year, that's still hard to believe.
Dominic Brown takes outside. Dominic 4 for 16 on the homestand. He shoots it the other way, and it's going to hang up there for Paul. And one out here in the second. Well, yesterday the Phillies were shut out yesterday 10-0. They've already had more games where they've allowed 10 runs, or the same amount of games they've allowed 10 runs or more as last year, and they've been shut out 6 times this season, which matches their shutout total from a year ago already.
And 4 of them are here.
Surprisingly, with all the problems they had last year offensively without Chase Utley and Ryan Howard, you saw that graphic, they scored more runs at this point last year than this year.
Well, there's stats that are just not good, and that shutout one, the runs you're talking about, and to be 4 of the 6 shutouts here, it's hard to believe you get shut out 4 times here this fast.
Outside, 1-1 to Knicks. Yeah, something's a little off kilter. As many of the players have said the last few days, and Charlie Manuel even said it, I don't know if they can put their finger on it. And Knicks lines one to left field, a base hit, second hit of the day for the Phillies. Yesterday, the Phillies trailed 3-0 to the Reds, and the Reds had a lot more opportunities. There's no doubt about it. But that 3-0 lead, and everybody's been part of these games before, it felt as if it was a 10-0 game when it was 3-0, and that shouldn't be.
No, and it was in the second inning. I guess it was because the 8-hole hitter had a 3-run homer, and it's his first of the year. You kind of go, oh. But no, that shouldn't happen. And then Arroyo, it was way too easy. He was good. I mean, to say that he wasn't, but that was too easy.
Carlos Ruiz has hit it 9 straight games for the Phillies. His average at 240, and he takes it side 1-0. To listen to the comments from Charlie Manuel yesterday, and to kind of talk to him a little bit today, we've heard him frustrated over the years. I thought last year we've probably heard him more frustrated than ever. I think this year's kind of taken the cake from him.
Yeah, this morning was. Right there he is talking to Jimmy. Right, yeah. This morning he just had. He was befuddled by yesterday. It just
outside 2-0 to Ruiz.
And he also didn't want to take anything away from Arroyo because the guy's a pro and he does what he has to do to compete out there. That's the kind of pitcher he is. But for it to go as fast and as easy as it was, that just didn't seem right. It didn't sit real well with him.
Carlos hits it back toward the middle. These Torres flips to Phillips for 1. That's all they'll get.
Here's Bronson Arroyo yesterday. We'd say it was easy. He was just throwing one slow pitch after another up there, and that's what he does. He has great command of it. Look at that little roundhouse American Legion curveball there, making right-handed hitters pull off. Just dominated through 7 2/3. Then he walked a couple guys in the 8th and came and got him. But they had a nice lead by then anyway.
Yeah, he made his 242nd start yesterday.
He's a workhorse too. This guy never misses a start. Pitches a lot of innings. A lot of quality innings.
Over to first, a foul ball. He made his 242nd start yesterday as a member of the Reds, which leaves him now 10th all time, tied with Gary Nolan on the all time list.
Gary Nolan, boy, what a good right-handed pitcher he was.
No balls, 1 strike to Freddie Galvis, a 283 hitter.
We have a totally different guy today. This guy's a power pitcher. He comes after you. And Bronson Arroyo's a change of speeds guy. Not really holding Ruiz on at first, figuring he's not going to go anywhere. And that way Votto can jump out and take the hole away a little quicker.
Splitter, and it's 1-2. Pretty good change of speeds for a guy that throws a low to mid 90s.
Yeah, that's what he'll use as his changeup. Doesn't throw straight change, uses split.
There goes Ruiz, and the pitch is fouled back. Hannigan almost acted as if it was a pitch out, the way he got out from behind home plate.
Yeah, boy, did he expose his body to injury there.
He almost got whacked with the bat.
Just watch what he does here. He jumps up, as Tom says, like it's a pitch out. It wasn't. The ball just happened to be out there because it was supposed to be a fastball in. He missed his spot. But boy, when you jump up like that as a catcher, you can get hurt.
Ground ball, fair ball. It hits the umpire and shoots into shallow right field. Ruiz will go to third, and Carlos is hurt. He's coming up lame as he goes to third base, and that is not a good sign.
Wow. Unbelievable.
That ball would have been down into the corner if it didn't hit Mike Everett. Ruiz still would have been at third. I don't think he would have scored, obviously, with the injury. There's no way he would have. But he's grabbing down by his ankle. I don't know if he turned his ankle going around second or what. The umpire is part of the field, so there's no interference. That ball was hit hard. It was tough for Mike Everett to get out of the way.
As it turns out, Carlos probably couldn't even score it. Here it is right here. Let's see what happens.
You know what? It didn't look like he turned anything.
He came up lame. He didn't grab the back of his leg, but that's what that looked like. That looked like a hammy when you pull up short like that, but he didn't touch his leg.
I wonder if it was his calf. And who knows? We don't know. I mean,
we don't know.
Hopefully, it's just a cramp. Looks like he wants to stay in the game.
Boy, that's great if it is a cramp.
Now the Phillies have first and third with 2 outs.
Now here's the ball is past the fielder, so once it's past the fielder and it hits the umpire, it's in play. If it hits him in front, it's dead. So you see right there, Mike Everett has to go, oh, that really hurt, but that's fair. That's a fair ball, and it's in play.
Ball was moving every which way. It was tough for him to get out of the way.
Yeah, it was hit hard.
Now let's hope Carlos can walk off whatever it is that's plaguing him.
Yeah, it was a good sign, I guess, that he didn't grab the back of his leg, because that's always a hammy.
Pettibone has 1 hit. He's 1 for 9. Takes outside. It's 1-0.
The thing about Pettibone, he only has a 1 hit, as Tom mentioned. He takes pitches. He always seems like he's in a hitter's count, and he has put some balls in play where he's not an out at home plate. He's going to make a lot of outs because he's a pitcher. You see, there he goes again. He's 2-0 right out of the chute. Jeff Brantley, the broadcaster for the Reds and a former Phillies, asked me today, well, what's he like at the plate? I said, watch him. He'll take a lot of pitches. I said, for whatever reason, he has a really good eye up there, and he runs deep counts. That was a good pitch to take.
Sure
it was. It didn't say he swung at it. That was a called strike.
Two balls, 2 strikes to Pettibone. Runners on first and third. And a called strike 3 on the outside corner. First strikeout for Bailey. And the Phils leave a couple. Ruiz trotting off. We'll see what happens when we come back with the top of the third here at Citizens Bank Park. Go to the fans section for all the information, and please submit your answer on the subject line. The question is, which Reds coach, Wheels, was traded from the Cardinals to the Twins at 84 for cash and a player to be named later? Answer will be revealed in the 7th inning. You got an idea for that one?
Yeah.
Do you really?
Well, it's going over their coaching staff.
Okay.
Because you're talking about a coach on their major league staff, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Can't lay it out there any clearer than that.
Well, you got to make sure. Yeah. Could be one of their minor league coaches, or see that coming, unfortunately.
Eric Kratz is taken over behind the plate as they tend to Carlos Ruiz.
Not that Eric's in the game, but the fact that they just lost Carlos Ruiz, he hasn't even been back that long, and well, we'll see. They'll tell us later what happened.
Top of the third, Shin Soo Choo leads it off. He's grounded out to shortstop. He's 0 for 1. Outside, 1-0. Kratz was the everyday catcher, while Carlos was on the disabled list, or excuse me, on the suspended list.
Pettibone's trying to figure, how's that a strike? Not a strike, and when you just called on me was.
It's remarkable.
He didn't say that, but that's what he's thinking.
That's high, 3-0.
That was a BP, lay it in there fastball if there ever was one. I don't know what the velocity was, but you could see he took something off it.
It was 92.
Was it? Was that hard? Huh?
It was at 91 right there. But it looked that way just because of where it was.
It just looked like he took a lot off.
On the outside corner, he threw him a cutter. And that's the first strikeout for Jonathan Pettibone. And Choo did not agree with that call. 1 out. And that'll bring Cesar Torres to the plate. Russell Kaufman threw out the first pitch today. He's part of the Wistar Institute. What a great day here at the ballpark. The floppy hats given out to all fans 14 and under. And Russell is with Murph. Murph, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, here with Dr. Kaufman, and you threw that first pitch out there today, and you threw a strike. It was a pretty good pitch. I was impressed by that.
Yeah, well, I switched from my fastball to my slider, so
That was probably a good move. We're getting served cupcakes right now, but we had some important business to discuss there, Fanatic. I'll tell you, full service right here. Dr. Kaufman, you guys gave out the Wistar Institute, gave out the hats today, which are really a tremendous item for kids 14 and under. But not only are they good looking, but they also serve a pretty important purpose as well.
Yeah, they serve a really important purpose. What we're trying to do is to increase the awareness of the risk for melanoma and other skin cancers related to sun exposure. And kids get 80% of their lifetime sun exposure. And so by giving these hats to families and kids, we're making them aware that kids need to be protected from the sun.
You know, the risks up here in Suite 77 include the Fanatic, as always, as this tourist gets the base hit right there. Dr. Kaufman, talk a little bit about the Wistar Institute, because, you know, we've heard the name now over the last couple of years, but you guys are doing some tremendous work over there.
Well, Wistar has been around since 1892. We were the first private biomedical research institute in the United States, and we study basic mechanisms of disease. In other words, we figure out what causes disease. And right now we're focusing mainly on cancer. So we try to figure out what causes cancer. And then with our insights into that, that gives us a chance to have cures that are focused on the cause.
And this is the kind of thing, obviously, guys, that affects just about everyone when you talk about sun exposure, and it's an important thing. Many people think about skin cancer and don't realize just how dangerous it can be.
Yes. Well, so skin cancers, the melanoma is the most dangerous type because it spreads. Other skin cancers are more likely to stay localized, but we want people to be aware of this so that they can recognize a change in a skin or a change in a mole. And so we've passed out today little flyers that on the back of it there are pictures of normal moles and malignant moles, so everyone can be informed about what a strange or bad-looking mole is. But any change in skin, any kind of abnormality, you ought to take it to your doctor and have your doctor take a look at it. This can be real serious.
Certainly good advice. Dr. Kaufman, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you being part of this terrific day here at Citizens Bank Park and raising awareness. Phillies are headed up the bat here in the bottom of the third. We'll be right back.
Rollins, Revere, and Michael Young against Homer Bailey. Phillies trail at 1-0. Jay Bruce's home run is the only offense so far. Rollins takes a strike. It's 0-1. Jimmy Rollins was just part of a very good double play that ended the top of the third. That was started by Michael Young over at first base.
Came out of nowhere.
1 ball and 1 strike.
And he went right to second base on it. Did not step on the bag first, so won a tag play. And that was really spectacular double play.
Rollins lines one, caught by Brandon Phillips. Well, he's one of the better defensive second basemen in the league, and it's partly because of his actions. And that ball was hit on the nose, but Phillips was able to go high in the air to grab it.
Now, he's a great athlete. This is a no-brainer for him. Because hit right at him, and all he had to do was time his leap. Tremendous athlete. Look how high he goes for it. That's routine for Brandon Phillips. And for some guys, you'd say that's a spectacular. Now, here's a play Tom's talking about. Watch Michael Young. It didn't look like he'd go to second at all. Now, Jimmy Rollins comes off the bag, makes the play, throws to first, and Votto, I don't know whether he'd run right away, but he was out easily at first.
Then Revere hits it hard, but it's caught by Chu in center.
But the thing was, Michael Young just taking that as an infielder who's used to throwing, just flipped that thing to second so accurately. And he kept it away from the runner, and he gave Rollins a chance to come off the bag real quickly after that and have a lane and use his legs a little too.
Young flight out to right his only time up. He's 0 for 1.
Ben Revere's hit 2 balls on the nose today. Normally you wouldn't even think twice about that, but the way he struggled.
Foul tip, and it's 2-1. Chase Utley's on deck. The Phillies with 3 hits, the Reds with 3 hits. With 2 outs here in the bottom of the 3rd. Phillies are 4.5 games out in the National League East. That's how interesting this game has been so far. The National League East, the first month and a half of the season. You know, the Braves were trailing 1-0 in the 8th inning last night when Evan Gattis hit a home run. There was a chance the Phillies came into today 3.5 out. Instead, they're 4.5 out. Not out of anything by any stretch of the imagination. But they are fortunate that the Braves and the Nationals have left the door open in the National League East.
Especially after that runaway start the Braves had at 12-1.
Three-two pitch coming to Michael Young. And he hits it off the end of the bat towards second. Big hop for Brandon Phillips. Side is retired in order. Phillies go down 1-2-3. We've completed our first 3 innings. We go to the 4th, and Brandon Phillips will lead it off for the Reds. Toyota Time Sales Event is going on now. Toyota, let's go places. By WB Mason, you can't go wrong when you buy right. By Xfinity, the official HD triple play provider of your Phillies. And by Dodge. Visit Dodge.com or your local dealer today. On to the fourth we go. Brandon Phillips, Jay Bruce, Todd Frazier due up against right-hander Jonathan Pettibone, who's allowed 1 run on 3 hits. The 1 run was a home run by Jay Bruce. Only the 3rd home run he's allowed here in the month of May, and the 5th overall. Brandon Phillips lays off a high pitch. It's 1-0. He popped out his first time up.
Brandon Phillips not doing a lot of damage. He came in there hitting the ball pretty good. Had other guys really that have stepped up. Botto, Bruce, as you mentioned.
That one's out toward right field. Lance Nix is there. Brandon Phillips not pleased with the contact he made. And with 1 out, Jay Bruce is coming up. Well, you're very close with Dusty Baker. We know that. How much does he like this team, and what are his concerns about this team, if any?
First of all, he likes that effort that they give him on a daily basis. And obviously, if he has some concerns, it is a little bit about that power. And I think with Ludwig, once he gets back there, he'll supply some power for them. And then a guy like a Brandon Phillips can get back to that second spot. He feels that makes them a better ball club.
That's interesting. I would have thought, even when Ludwig comes back, that he'd keep Phillips in the middle of the lineup.
Yeah, well, he was hitting second. And
I know.
Keep in mind, you got Votto there, too, who's probably the best hitter, let's face it, on the team in terms of average, a good eye, on base percentage. And you have, again, a guy like, say, Bruce that can hit the ball out, and a guy like Ludwig who proven in that ballpark in Cincinnati that he can go deep.
Through a 91-mile-an-hour fastball by Bruce. It's 1-2.
That's where you need to pitch him, kind of up and in. You get that ball a little bit further down by that belt area. You want that ball away as opposed to middle in. I think like any manager, though, you always feel that bullpen can be a little stronger, or your starting pitching.
Gets it inside again. All right, his pitches so far have been in a good spot. This pitch was not in a good spot, though.
Yeah, that went down. Just talked about that. Left-hander's dream there, but he smoked that ball straight away center field, right on it.
In the dirt, 3-2.
Thought yesterday's ball game just really game plan for me, not the way that it should have been. Too many first swinging at that first pitch, not squaring the ball up. Arroyo, just a variety of different breaking balls, fastballs. You would think really like a day like today you've come out and want a little bit of revenge getting beat down like that.
I think the disappointing thing about yesterday was when they were down 3-0, the Phillies, there just didn't seem like there was a whole lot of energy going on. No magic. Not that they weren't trying or anything like that, but it seemed like they were down by more than 3-0.
Yeah.
Bruce is down on the breaking pitch. Second strikeout for Pettibone. Let's check in with Murph. Murph?
All right, guys, just an update on Phillies catcher Carlos Ruiz, who obviously injured himself when rounding second base here in the bottom of the second inning. We are being told it is a right hamstring strain right now. No other information on Carlos Ruiz, but a right hamstring strain. So obviously Eric Kraut's now in the ballgame.
He just left there. You can see he had a little bit of a limp in his gait as he was going down the stairs.
Yeah.
So Kratz obviously is in the game. Kevin Franzen is the emergency catcher for the Phillies as Frazier lines one right back up the middle. And that's a 2-out single. And Xavier Paul is coming up. Well, who knows how long Carlos will be out. Let's hope it's a very short period of time. But if it is a DL move, that is a tough it's a tough person to lose.
Well, very tough, especially just coming back and kind of finding his way, if you will. Not getting that average right where he wants, but still you could see that he was coming on. And what this would be another setback as far as in your timing again there and trying to hit these pitchers.
Paul hits it down the left field line. Dominic Brown will give it a look into foul territory. He jumps and he can't get it. That was a tough play.
Yep. It would have been a great play if he could have caught that ball. But again, let's take a look at the effort as he gets up. Wow. Take a look at this.
He just missed it.
Wondered if he went up there and closed his eyes. I mean, the ball, he got up there, but that ball, his glove was nowhere near the vicinity of the ball.
Well, that area closes up pretty quickly down there.
Yeah, well, we'll have to ask him about that because clearly he didn't see it. Got to get lucky he didn't get hit right in the head. He jumped up and the ball was below the glove, I thought. What do you think on that?
I think I'm with you on it. I mean, he jumped and it like slipped right past him. And another base hit. That ball's hit hard by Paul. Yeah, there are runners on first and second. Now, you played that position, so you know how difficult a play that is and whether it should have been caught or not.
I got to tell you, Tommy, I've missed some balls before, but I don't ever remember jumping and doing that. Sorry. Take one more look at him. See how he jumps up? He closed his eyes. Did you see that? I mean, he went back out to the fence there. I mean, that's why they have that padding there. It's not going to hurt you when you jump on that. And they've been on that quite a few times. See, these are the kind of games that you want to be able to win so you can go back and look at that and he'd have like a cape in his locker or something the next day. Only can do that, though, when you win. I mean, you can joke about things that go bad base running and so on when you win. Becomes magnified, however, when you're losing ball games.
1 ball, no strikes to Ryan Hanigan, who popped out to Utley his first time up. He's the number 8 hitter. The pitcher is up next. Hanigan hitting just 161. Out toward right center field. On the run is Lance Nix. He's there, and that'll do it for the 4th inning. No runs, 2 hits, and 2 men left. Middle of the 4th, it'll be Chase Utley, Superman, and Lance Nix when we come back. Green Mountain Coffee. K-Cups delivered in all the flavors you love. By who? But W.B. Mason. Home half of the fourth, Chase Utley, Dominic Brown, Lance Nix due up for the Phillies against right-hander Homer Bailey. Bailey has scattered 3 hits so far through the first 3 innings. He's retired the last 4 hitters he's faced. And it'll be 4, 5, and 6 for the Phillies. Utley flied out to center his first time up. Phillies will leave after today's ball game for 3 against the Miami Marlins, and then next weekend they'll take on the Nationals before they go to Boston for 2 games and take on the Red Sox. Those are the floppy hats we were talking about before when Murph was doing his interview. After the Phillies take on the Red Sox on the next homestand, they'll face the Milwaukee Brewers in a 3-game series. Friday is Comcast Fanatic About Reading Night, a free Fanatic children's book for fans 14 and under. Sunday the 2nd, Chevrolet Father's Appreciation Day, free Phillies t-shirt to men 15 and over. Order now at Phillies.com. Utley takes a pitch high. It's 1 ball and no strikes. Chase now 0 for his last 12.
That pressure starts to go more and more the more hits you don't get. I don't care how you get one, you just want one, whether or not it's a swinging bunt, crack your bat, get a line drive and a base hit. Could hit the bag, anything. Just kind of getting that offer off of you. Just mentally, what it does is makes you feel a lot better. Even Utley yesterday swung at a lot of first pitches. Was kind of surprised at that, or second pitch, not really working the count. And that's what you have to do. You want to work that count to get it where he becomes a little more predictable. If he gets that same pitch again, and that's why when you take a pitch, you always want to take it like you're going to hit it, so you can be in that same position on this next count, 3-1.
Utley sprays it foul over the Reds dugout. It's 3-2.
That pitch there just a little bit lower, and I think what he did, Bailey, was take something off of that so he can get out of the zone. Need a base runner.
Up high, ball 4, and Utley draws a walk. Phillies baseball is brought to you by the Quality Plus Ford stores. Go further. By Citizens Bank, where good banking is good citizenship. Isn't it time you experience good banking? And by the Pennsylvania Lottery, benefits older Pennsylvanians every day. Ryan Hannigan walks out to the mound to talk to Homer Bailey with Dominic Brown due up. Brown lined out to left his first time up.
Well, Dominic has been hitting the ball on the line. Hit the ball hard in yesterday's ball game. First time up here today, he hit the ball hard. Just need to be able to find a hole somewhere. Can't guide it, however. Just all you want to do is just drive that ball.
There have been just 8 attempts against Ryan Hanigan. He's been on the disabled list with an injury this year, but just 8 steal attempts against him. As Utley leads off first. First pitch upstairs, 1-0 the count.
Well, he gave him the sign. First 2 pitches to throw over. And that one he asked for an outside fastball, which is almost like a pitch out at times.
Ball, 1 strike to Dominic Brown. Brown is 1 for 9 against Homer Bailey in his career. Threw him a 1-0 curveball.
Well, he spanked that fastball the last time up, so he's actually making a little bit of an adjustment. See whether or not he gets a fastball. You know, and all the catchers these days, Yadier Molina does it quite a bit, but even here, you'll see how he'll start to shift. And he'll get in more of a throwing position, especially when base runners are there. You'll see Ryan, and just he'll give that sign, and then he'll switch his body where he's almost going toward the outside there with his foot. And see now he gets right there in that position.
Down low, 2-1.
Easy to pivot, especially if that ball's outside and a runner is running. Don't have to turn all the way around. Now, usually, though, for the umpire, he has his zone. So he knows he's looking right at that ball where that pitch is. A lot of times, too, you'll see catchers try and frame a ball. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. See? Umpire's right there on it.
Ground ball towards shortstop. Luis Torres gets 1. Phillips' turn, not in time. Utley got on him pretty quickly. Fielder's choice. Brown broke his bat. And 1 out for Lance Nix, who singled his first time up. Bailey's about to throw his 50th pitch.
I'm sure, though, Ryan will do the same thing there with Dominic Brown on first base.
Yeah, I wondered about that because Brown has not attempted a steal so far.
And a lot of times you'll have guys that haven't bunted a lot, and you'll see guys playing in. Jimmy Rollins is a good example. You'll have a lot of third basemen that will come in. How many times have you seen him push the ball to third base? But I guess more or less just the threat of taking that bunt away.
Inside, 1 ball, 1 strike. I think that shot we just saw from high third gave us a clear indication of how Hanigan sets up with a runner at first base.
Yeah.
I think what we pointed out before about the home plate umpire, he is over his right shoulder, so even if he shifts that way, he still has a clear look at the plate.
Yeah, and then you'll have some umpires that, well, they're going to move a little bit, making sure that they're able to see exactly where that ball is going over across the plate. And every one of them, and let's face it, have their own style of calling balls and strikes and whether or not they're comfortable over, you know, whatever shoulder.
1-1 the count to Nix. There goes Brown. Pitch is taken low. The throw to second sails, and Brown has a stolen base. Well, there you go. Even though he was cheating some, he got a fastball, but he still didn't have anything on the throw.
Yeah, I thought too, though. Dominic had an excellent jump. Take a look at it. So he gets that ball in one motion. He's off and throwing. Good slide, too. Take a look at his jump there. Spun his wheels just a little bit, getting down. High throw made it easy for him to get in.
Now, since 2011, that was the last stolen base for Dominic Brown. So he's in scoring position. And it's 2-1 to Lance Nix. A base hit should tie this ball game up. Erik Kratz, who came on for Carlos Ruiz, is on deck. Threw a 3-1 curveball.
Well, there's your difference in the leagues from AAA, AA, and the major leagues. I can guarantee you, AA, AAA, you're going to get a pretty good fastball in the major leagues, especially if a guy like a Lance Nix can hit that ball out of the ballpark. You'll get something off speed.
I think that's also the difference in Homer Bailey the last couple of years, too. A couple of years ago, he would have just pumped a fastball.
Yep. No, too, and a lot has to do guy hitting behind you. You know, and he knows that Kratz, you know, just coming into the ball game, they're not just going to pump fastballs and let you see how far that you can hit it. That's a dead fastball hitter. He can hit the breaking ball as well, but likes to sit on that fastball.
Got him with an off-speed pitch. That was the splitter. And that's the second strikeout for Homer Bailey.
Not just a good pitch, not giving in to the hitter. If he was going to get it, it was going to have to be his pitch. See that grip there as it goes right down on the ground.
A reminder for Budweiser, great times are waiting. Designate a driver. Erik Kratz up for the first time. Carlos Ruiz left with a right hamstring strain back of the second. Breaking ball over for a strike. It's 0-1.
Pretty difficult to hit that particular pitch unless he's actually going that way. A little closer to the plate. Wouldn't even have to reach at that ball. And again, most players today don't like moving in the batter's box, regardless of the pitcher. The reason why, they feel comfortable. You know, making the adjustment is maybe kind of taking away that pitcher's pitch. Getting a little bit closer to the plate doesn't give him as big a view for the target for that plate, whether or not it's inside or outside.
Kratz lifts it to right center field. Chu on the run, and he's there. And that'll do it for the fourth inning. No runs, no hits. Phillies leave one in scoring position for the third time in today's game. End of 4, Reds 1, Phillies nothing. new low yearly prices. Watch every out-of-market game live on over 350 supported mobile and connected devices in HD quality with MLB.TV Premium. Visit MLB.TV today. MLB.TV, baseball everywhere. Top of the fifth. Homer Bailey leads it off. It takes a strike. Bailey grounded back to Pettibone. A high chopper his first time up. He's 0 for 1. It'll be Bailey, then Chu, and East Torres. Ground ball to shortstop. One away. Shin-Soo Choo is due up. Weeknights on PHL 17. Catch a full hour of the funniest show on TV. The Big Bang Theory. Plus, all this week, we're giving away tickets to Comic-Con in San Diego and other sweet prizes. It's all on Philly's #1 comedy, The Big Bang Theory. Weeknights at 7 on PHL 17. Shin-Soo Choo has some fans, at least some of their fans. Some of his fans were here in Philadelphia. At the knees, 0-1.
Got some big hits for the Cincinnati Reds this year. Off to a good start.
Well, he's a good player. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know what the offseason will have for him when it comes to free agency. Whether he's able to re-sign with the Reds or not. He has an opportunity to make himself some pretty good cash during this offseason.
He's steady with that bat in his hand. Shies away a little bit from the fences, but other than that, hey, this guy here has been one heck of a player, and they wouldn't be where they are right now without him in that leadoff spot and playing center field, regardless of whether or not he shies away from the fences or not.
Swing and a miss. He got him with a changeup. Third strikeout for Pettibone. Well, that was a very good pitch.
Yep. Good arm motion on that pitch. Here it is. See that grip there. Boy, I tell you, look at the motion, though, as it sinks out of the zone.
East Torres is 1 for 2. He singled his last time. Outside with a changeup, 1-0.
He's got that changeup that he throws that almost acts as if it's a screwball and going the other way.
Ben Revere on the run, and he'll get to it. This turns out to be a pretty easy inning for Pettibone. Throws just 10 pitches to retire the Reds in order. We've played 4.5. Freddie Galvis will start things off when we return. Camps for girls and boys aged 6 to 14. Professional coaching and skill development for Phillies players, coaches, and Baseball Academy instructors. It includes an official Phillies Baseball Academy uniform, a trip to Citizens Bank Park, 13 different locations. A camper reunion night. Call 610-520-3400. 1-0 Reds as we shift to the bottom of the 5th. The Italian Festival going on today in Center City.
Gosh.
Sarge, you should have paid a visit there.
I tell you, I really do. I really like that type of an atmosphere where you can go around and not only meet a lot of people. Usually you have some of the chefs that are out there, and the food is always good.
Well, the Phillies are hoping to feast on home Bailey as we start the bottom of the 5th. Galvis singled his first time up. He hit a ball over the first base bag and hit the first base umpire. He shows bunt, takes a strike. It's 0-1.
Yeah, they need to really, again, too many shutouts so far this year. 6 total, 4 here at home. Got to get that off of them.
I think what was surprising, we showed a statistic before, and I think we all knew this the last couple of weeks, is that they scored more runs last year at this point without Ryan Howard and Chase Utley. Now they had Hunter Pence, of course. Galvis lifts it down the right field line. Brandon Phillips and Jay Bruce are there, and it's Phillips in foul territory who makes the catch. And 1 out for Jonathan Pettibone.
Homer's throwing good. Shouldn't be able to shut this offense down. 8 fly ball outs here too so far.
Which is kind of his MO, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and he pitches high in the zone. One of those pitchers so far here able to get away with pitching up in the zone. That's how you get those fly balls. Pitch down in the zone, you get ground balls.
Pettibone lines one right at Frazier. 2 outs. Toyota Major League Scoreboard. The Marlins, who have lost 7 straight, lead the Diamondbacks 2-0. That game has gone to the bottom of the 6th. They scored 2 runs in the bottom of the 6th. They had been scoreless in their previous 14 innings before those 2 runs crossed the plate. Talk about how the Phillies have struggled here at home at Citizens Bank Park. Well, the Marlins are 5-16 down at Marlins Park, where the Phillies will head after this game. They had their lowest crowd, just over 13,000, in the year plus that ballpark was open, just the other day.
Well, I can understand, though, too, for me, Tom, why they are 5-16, just with the club they've had, all the different changes and the trades. You know, we're talking about a veteran ball club for me here with the Fighting Fields, established players, established hitters, all-stars for me that should be playing better. Again, that's where you don't understand it here with this caliber team. Sure, with the Florida team, yeah, younger players, sure, they're going to make mistakes and getting rid of all their best players, except for maybe their right fielder in Stanton. But other than that, it's all together, almost a new pitching staff. How about this Fernandez, who we don't want to see, that we're going to see when we go down there? This guy here is a pretty good pitcher. Those are the guys, for me, that the Fighting Fields got to be able to handle, and handle in a way where, again, winning the series. This is a big game, even though they're not playing well. Winning the series is what it's all about.
Which they can do with a victory today. 1-1 the count to Rollins. That ball was low and in toward his shins.
We've seen what this club can do, and they're doing the things they should. It's just been sporadic, just not able to put it together for 4, 5, 6 games in a row to play the way that you should.
Rollins tops it foul.
It goes all together. Defense, base running, getting your pitchers pitching the right pitch when you have a shift on a guy, knowing where to throw the ball in all situations. All that goes along with the game plan of what you're trying to do to win a game. When you're lacking in all those areas, guess what? You're not going to have consistent play. It's just impossible.
Yeah, as much as you want to say that the Phillies have this, that, or the other thing, there's still something lacking in each of those areas.
No doubt. Exactly.
Can they find it?
Sure they can find it. The thing is, they've done it before. That's the whole puzzling thing. This club has done it. The core of the club has done it before and been successful.
Rollins grounds it foul. And it remains 3-2. Well, the success this team has had over the last 6 years or so, 7 years, even before they made the postseason in 2007, has built a new fan base that's used to just one thing, and that's winning. Nice play by Votto to throw out to get Rollins at first as Bailey covers. 3-1 on the putout. Phillies go down in order. 5 in the books. We go to the top of the 6th. Closing out games in dominating fashion. Taking them out and taking control has been Jonathan Papelbon all season for the Phillies. Holding opposing hitters to the bare minimum has been the norm when the Phillies closer is called upon. Of the week is closing out games in dominating fashion. Taking them out and taking control has been Jonathan Papelbon all season for the Phillies. Holding opposing hitters to the bare minimum has been the norm when the Phillies closer is called upon, whether it be 3 outs or even more needed to finalize a victory. The final out is often hard to come by, but Pap has taken that out of the mix. And it's brought to you by Independence Blue Cross, changing the game. Phillies are hoping they'll get a chance to see Jonathan Papelbon at some point in this game. They trail it 1-0 as we go to the 6th. Joey Votto leads it off, and Votto takes a strike from Jonathan Papelbon, who has scattered 5 hits and just 1 run through the first 5 innings of today's ball game.
Doing a good job there, giving his team a chance to win.
Floater out towards center, and Votto has his 2nd hit. This one a leadoff single here in the 6th. And speaking of Joey Votto, it brings us to our Mazda leaders. His batting average in road games is the highest in the National League. He's hitting over 500 against the Phillies. Actually, he's right at 500 now. He's 10 for 20 against the Phillies. But in the National League on the road, he's hitting .430. And then Daniel Murphy, who had a great game yesterday for the Mets, or I should say Friday, is 4th, and then David Wright is 5th.
Now that's doing some serious hitting, to say the least.
The ball might find its way up toward the. Nope, it's going to stay in the. Oh yeah, it did go up to the upper deck, and then it shot right back down.
Holy cow! That's what you call getting out in front of a ball.
He's 0 for 2. He's been retired by Utley, and he also flied to right. Left center field. Ben Revere calls off Dominic Brown. Votto's going to tag and just draw the throw. How about that, Votto, Sarge?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to mention, though, I mean, once you're in and you're able to have, what was that, 8 hits or 8 consecutive times being on the base there from yesterday.
6 times yesterday.
6 times yesterday. I think you got to hit, what, the first time up
yep.
Today, then hit into a double play. That takes serious concentration is really what I wanted to say. You know, and a guy, again, even as good as he is doing, for people to kind of criticize and find fault with his game, sometimes a little bit can be unfair, because I remember Hank Aaron doing the same thing where he'd go through periods where all he wanted to do was kind of get his base and then hit singles. And then he'd tell Dusty, well, I'm going to try and lift the ball. And sure enough, he'd go on the road and come back with 5-6 home runs.
Bruce fights one off toward the left field line. Dominic Brown, a long run and a sliding grab in fair territory. The throw back to try to get Votto. It gets away from Michael Young, and Votto's going to go to second base. That'll wind up being an error, I guess, on Dominic Brown, but it was a heck of a play by Brown for the second out.
Well, that's usually who does get that throw. It was a pretty good try. This is a great catch as he comes in. Didn't close his eyes on that one as he catches it going right on the line slide. Take a look at this throw as he throws it all the way over. Well, nobody's fault on that. Young trying to get that ball. Votto kind of impeding his vision, not able to get over to block it. There he is standing there on second base.
Well, they do charge the error to Dominic Brown on the throw. First error of the year for Brown. Frazier's up. He singled his last time up, and he takes outside. Frazier ended an 0 for 19 slump yesterday. He picked up a base hit here today.
Yeah. Easier to be able to be in the lineup when you're struggling. The team still playing good baseball and near being in first place. St. Louis in first place in that National League Central. Whatever reason, those clubs, the Yankee clubs, they don't seem to have downtime like a lot of other teams, or if they're rebuilding. The
Yes.
Yankees, sorry, Tom, I was just going to say Robinson Cano, it's had a lot to do with the Yankees' success. They always seem to have one person or a few that are carrying that ball club.
Well, at this point in the season, if the National League season came to a close today, the Reds and the Pirates would be the 2 wild card teams. So the National League East would only have the Atlanta Braves in the postseason. Plenty of baseball left to be played, but it's been an interesting storyline to start the year in the National League. Frazier fights another one off and fouls it into the Hall of Fame club. Little low, 3-2. Pettibone trying to get through the 6th. He's allowed 6 hits so far. He's pitched well.
Yeah.
Out toward right field. Nix on the run. Back toward the track. Over his head and off the scoreboard. Votto will score. The throw goes to second. Frazier's safe with a double. And it's 2-0 Cincinnati. And Frazier with his 8th double of the year. And he's 2 for 3.
That's good hitting, breaking ball. See that ball, though? It just kind of fluttered in that middle of the plate. More kind of like a hanger. As you see Votto coming in, and the reason he was going in hard just because, again, Frazier going to second base, so he wanted to make sure that he crossed home plate if indeed he was out at second.
Well, the error, the throwing error on the fly ball off the bat of Jay Bruce put Votto in scoring position. He wouldn't have scored on that base hit by Frazier. Probably would have been second and third with 2 outs. And they're walking Paul intentionally here to face Hannigan. So righty on righty.
Well, that's a good point, too, because Votto not a fast runner. He'd have a difficult time in scoring on a ball off the wall, and ball coming back in that quick by Lance Nix.
Catcher Ryan Hannigan.
See, those are all those little things, too, though, that you don't take for granted in a ball game, and that's that other giving you 100% while they're out there playing. I mean, a lot of guys would have just kind of been spectating, taking it easy. But you want to go out there, give 100%, and more importantly, hey, once you end up winning that game, that's the time to be able to celebrate, not there on the field.
Hannigan takes a change up for strike one. It's 0-1. Now, it hasn't helped that the Phillies have gone 14 straight innings without scoring a run. You know, it's only 2-0 with runners on first and second with 2 outs here in the 6th.
They've hit some balls hard to no avail, right at the defensive players. Just got to hit more, that's all.
Chopper toward the left side. Galvis with a sliding play. Throws out Hannigan. That is a fine play by Freddie Galvis to end the 6th inning. A run does score. It's an unearned run. 2 hits, 1 error. Ben Revere started off when we get back. Your local dealer at ChevyDealer.com. By Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. And by Mazda. We believe if it's not worth driving, it's not worth building. Last of the 6th inning. Phillies offense has managed just 3 hits today. They haven't scored in 14 straight innings. And it'll be Ben Revere, Michael Young, Chase Utley. That little guy doesn't mind at all. He's just enjoying a day at the ballpark.
Yep. Actually, not a bad day. A little bit overcast. Short sleeves. Some fans are wearing. A lot of young Philly fans looking to hear an eruption. You get that though. A few base hits, maybe a couple home runs. Maybe even one might do it.
Ben Revere is 1 for 2. He's hit the ball hard both times today. He doubled his first time up. Lined out to center his last time. Frazier's creeping into third. Revere takes a strike. It's 0-1.
See, that's almost taking that bunt away altogether. But again, though, if you're throwing the ball outside, you can shoot that ball. All you have to do is, if you hit that ball to the left side, if it's not right at him, usually that ball's a hit.
There you go. Inside the bag, down the left field line. Revere rounds first. He'll hold up there. And he gets his second hit of the day. Good call on that, Sarge.
He actually tried to go that way, it appeared. Hitting that ball. Look as he goes that way. All that room that's open, not hit hard enough there to get that double. Take a look at it as that ball just goes down, gonna kind of die. Good base hit, good start to for the Pike field.
Now Michael Young, he's 0 for 2. He flied to right, he grounded out to second. Phillies have stolen 1 base today. It was Dominic Brown in the 4th.
And Dominic got a good jump and going head first. You would think Ryan, however, behind home plate, he's anticipating Ben Revere going, and you don't want to go, however, unless you get a good jump. You know, I agree they should play their game, still try and steal a base. Even though you're behind, though, they have more of a running base. The guys that can run, you want them to go.
Chopper to third. Frazier gets 1. They get 2. Five, 4, 3 double play, and quickly there are 2 outs here in the bottom of the 6th.
I know that Michael's hitting his share of double plays this year. Take a look at it as he hit into his 11th double play. That one there just, well, you're not a fast runner. They're going to be able to turn that even if it is 5-4-3. Bottle picking the ball out of the dirt.
Well, with 2 outs, Chase Utley's the hitter. Utley is 0 for 1. He walked his last time up. You want to find out more about what Chase Utley did this past offseason to get himself ready for this season. Check out Matt Gelb's story in the Philadelphia Inquirer today. Pretty good timeline about what he did in San Francisco this past offseason. Some of the folks he met, how he trained, and how he prepared to begin the season with the club on the 25-man roster and not on the disabled list.
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, he had to have worked hard with the injury that he had, and to be able to come back and not have to take days off because of that. We've seen him slide. We've seen him run. Doesn't seem to have any ill effects at all.
Grounder foul, and it remains 0-2. Utley floats one out toward left field, and it drops in front of Paul. A base hit that ends an 0 for 12 stretch for Utley. Second hit of the inning for the Phillies. Dominic Brown is coming up. Murph has more on some of the folks that Chase Utley met while he was training at the University of San Francisco. Murph?
Yeah, you know what, Tom? As I was walking around AT&T Field when we were out there a couple weeks ago, I met a couple of guys from the University of San Francisco baseball team, and they were there because Chase Utley invited them there. He worked out with them over the winter and got a chance to meet some of the kids. He invited the entire team. He bought them all tickets out there in left field. About 25 guys, including their coach, all enjoying a game on Chase Utley. And, I asked the guys what it was like to work out with a guy like Chase Utley, and they just said, I'll tell you what, once in a lifetime to see a guy work so hard to get back to where he is.
Yeah, it's almost like he is here, leading by example for some of those younger players.
Well, again, too, though, with that injury to work like that, and not only that, when you're able to go to a school and you work out like that, you are just, for the kids there, you can't measure that in terms of what they're going to get out of it, and besides what Chase gets out of it, a healthy body.
0-2 the count to Dominic Brown. I don't know if how many folks have been on the University of San Francisco campus. It is a beautiful campus, obviously, like San Francisco, very hilly, but it is a gorgeous place. Jimmy Rollins' sister played basketball at the University of San Francisco.
Yeah, nice area, my favorite city.
Utley goes. The pitch is taken outside. The throw to second goes into center field. And Utley quickly pops up and he heads to third.
Well, we just talked about that move there that Ryan will make. For whatever reason, this guy here, the ball's coming. He jumps out to be able to take that throw. Take a look at him. Well, take a look at this jump. Utley straight steal, didn't look back there at all. It is 2 out, pops up. He goes into third base. See it again for me. You got to use that running game. That's what I'm talking about, because that's the only way you're going to be able to get back in it. You need more chances with runners there at second base. So I was thinking maybe Ben might try and run early in the count.
Second time today the Phillies have had a runner over at third base. Phillies have stranded 4 so far in the game. 3 of those 4 have been in scoring position. Looking for a big 2-out base hit from Dominic Brown. The 1-2 pitch. And a foul ball.
Well, he just was standing up there as if he was a statue. You got to really call timeout. Don't want the pitcher to freeze you that long. They freeze you that long there. What happens to you, I mean, you just get really where it's just difficult to get that bat through the zone. You want to have some motion and going through the zone with your low. If he waits too long, you're going and step out, start all over again. Be a big run right here to get.
Big run, big pitch. That's why Hannigan's walked the baseball out to Homer Bailey.
Not quite knowing really what he wants to throw to Dominic. That fastball that he hit early in the ball game. Maybe not too sure he wants to get that there near the zone. Still throwing hard.
The 8th pitch of the at-bat to Dominic Brown. And a ground ball to first. Joey Votto's there. And he'll take it to the bag just in time, and the side is retired. No runs, 2 hits. Utley left over at third. We've played 6 here in Philadelphia. It's the Reds 2 and the Phillies nothing.
Well, time now for our Honda game summary. Jay Bruce with a solo home run, then an unearned run as the Reds push that across in the 6th inning. Homer Bailey's been good today, although the Phillies have hit some balls really hard off him. And Jonathan Pettibone, once again keeping his team in the game, has pitched very well here this afternoon. Phillies just can't score.
Well, he'll start against Homer Bailey, throw a strike to him, so it's 0-1. Now 1 ball, 1 strike. The Phillies do have bullpen action behind Jonathan Pettibone. He went 6 2/3 his last time, which is, his high in his brief major league career. 1-1 the count to Bailey. And Bailey fought off what was a ball. And it's 1-2.
The thing with Bailey is he went 125 pitches his last time out in a complete game. They have a very rested Aroldis Chapman today. We have not seen him in this series, so they could use him for more than an inning if they had to.
Bailey struck out. 4 strikeouts now for Pettibone. Let's go back to the top of the order, and we'll go to Murph with the Major League Notebook.
All right, thank you very much, T-Mac. Some news coming out of Pittsburgh this afternoon. Pirates All-Star Andrew McCutchen was a late scratch from the lineup today. The center fielder is battling a sore knee. The team has an off day tomorrow, so they figure give him the day off and hopefully get him back earlier rather than later. And the news out of Atlanta yesterday is worth repeating. Eric O'Flaherty, the left-hander out of the bullpen for the Atlanta Braves, has a torn ligament in his elbow. He is the 3rd reliever the Braves have lost in the last 3 days. He is probably going to need season-ending surgery, and that goes along with Venters, who just had Tommy John surgery, so they lose both of those guys. It is unbelievable what's happening to the Braves bullpen in just a matter of a couple of days, guys.
Frank Wren, who's the general manager, Murph, said yesterday that he has no plans to make any kind of trades, at least at this point, to bring in another left-hander. His feeling is that Luis Avilan, who is a lefty, who we've seen and has pitched well, will fill O'Flaherty's role, but he would not rule out, as the season moved on, making another move because he likes the luxury of having more than one left-hander coming out of the bullpen that can throw the way O'Flaherty and Venters were throwing.
Yeah, regardless of who they're able to get to replace those innings. I mean, O'Flaherty obviously very effective in his jobs. He will be a big loss for those Atlanta Braves going forward. And, they haven't announced that he's having surgery yet, but he does have that torn ligament. They have said that. So most likely Tommy John surgery is on the horizon for him.
Probably been a long time, Murph, since Kimber went for a save that O'Flaherty or Venters went in front of him.
That's true, yeah.
He's been used to those guys setting him up for a while.
Well, the Braves brought up Corey Rasmus from Gwinnett. Corey Rasmus is the brother of Colby Rasmus, the outfielder for the Toronto Blue Jays. A 1-out walk to Shin-Soo Choo, and you see the pitches for Pettibone. He's at 100 pitches with Horst warming up in the pen.
I think you're getting him ready for Votto, if in fact they make a move. And the reason more than anything is that what's on top of 1 out there, 100 pitches for a young pitcher. But it's not like the bullpen has been effective when you make a move. You may make the move that makes sense. Well, yeah, they're thinking about it. When you see Rich Doobie do that, that means they're trying to find out if he's ready.
That's an old school way to signal that a pitcher's ready. Back in the minor leagues, they don't always have phones.
Right.
In fact, very few of the older ballparks have phones. Not even some of the new ballparks don't have phones. That's how they would signal if a guy is done. They would tip their cap up.
Just want to know and then get the cap tip back in the bullpen. Say, okay, he's ready if you need him.
0-1 the count to Cesar Izturis.
So that leads you to believe that they're going to bring him in for Votto.
Kratz throws behind Choo, but he gets back. It's 1 ball and 1 strike to Izturis. Kratz back there for Carlos Ruiz. If you're just joining us, Carlos left with a right hamstring strain.
That's what we were afraid it was without him reaching for it, because it just looked like he blew a tire between second and third. You don't know until the trainers give you the report upstairs, but that sure looked like a hammy.
Runner goes, pitches lofted towards center field.
Good job deking him.
They did deke him. Can Revere make the throw in time? Nope. And Choo will get back to first.
Well, Jimmy Rollins really had him going, because they were playing hit and run there. Choo had his head down. He didn't know where the ball was. Revere doesn't throw very well, but he slipped when he went to throw it, so that compounded the fact that he threw it almost straight into the ground. Because they have him with any kind of throw. Now watch Jimmy. You'll see he's running. He's got his head down. He takes a peek there. It's too late. They're simulating a double play right there. And now, but Revere, he slips when he goes to throw it and then threw it wide. But they did a great job with Rollins flashing across the bag like they were turning 2.
Well, Joey Votto will face Jonathan Pettibone with a runner at first and 2 outs. Votto is 2 for 3 today.
They almost made him slide, which would have really been good, because then when he's down on the ground, you have a heck of a chance to get him before he can get back. There was hitting runner straight steal and more. Think about it, because he didn't look back till he heard the ball hit the bat, so it was a straight steal. Forget what the count was.
Little number toward third. Galvis has it around the bag, and Pettibone is through 7 innings this afternoon. He has done an excellent job yet again. No runs, no hits. 1 man left. Time to stretch here at Citizens Bank Park. Here's the question one more time. Which Reds coach was traded from the Cards to the Twins in '84 for cash and a player to be named later? And the player happened to be Jonathan Pettibone's dad, Jay.
Well, there are three guys, Brooke Jacoby, Billy Hatcher, and Chris Spire all played around the same time.
Oh, so you're deducing.
And I looked at you and I saw him standing down there with his hat off. So I'm going to go with it, Chris Spire.
Chris Spire is the correct answer.
Yeah.
Spire had himself a pretty good career.
Yeah, that was just Chris Spire was a good player and had some tremendous years. Giants, Montreal. He stayed with those teams for a while. I don't remember the Cardinals for very long though.
Well, it's a little history lesson, Wheels. The Dodge Stump the Fans trivia quiz.
Yeah, that's fun stuff. Let's see how long he was with the Cardinals.
Homer Bailey is about to begin the bottom of the 7th inning. He'll face Lance Nix, Eric Kratz, and Freddie Galvis. And the pitcher spot is due up after that. A reminder, the Phillies will be heading to Miami to take on the Marlins. And then later on this year, they'll face the Marlins in a 3-game series here at Citizens Bank Park. And on Tuesday, June 4th, all fans, compliments of Toyota, will receive the Carlos Ruiz Bobble figurine. Purchase tickets at Phillies.com for that 3-game series. Second time that Carlos's likeness has been part of the Bobble figurine giveaway.
Spent most of his career with San Francisco and Montreal. In '84, Montreal, St. Louis, Minnesota. He's only played 12 games for Minnesota.
He wound up with San Francisco at the end of his career, too.
Yes.
Lance Nix grounds the first pitch to the right side. 3-1 on the putout. There's Chris Spire.
Chris Spire had an unbelievable arm from shortstop. He wasn't the smoothest looking guy, and he would wind up when he threw a lot of times, but boy, could he get the thing over there. And he had a little power. He's a nice player.
Well, he's coaching third base for the Cincinnati Reds, even though he's the bench coach. As you see the comparison between last start and this start for Homer Bailey against the Phillies, because Mark Berry, who is the normal third base coach, has stepped away from his duties. He's battling an illness. As Kratz takes low, 1 ball and no strikes.
They're going to get the bullpen up right now and be ready here in case something were to happen with Homer Bailey. Great job again by Jonathan Pettibone. Just no runs, no support, and an unearned run after the throw in hit the runner. Or it didn't hit him. I guess he was screened a little bit, right?
He was screened. You know, the error was charged to Dominic Brown. I think if you ask Michael Young, he probably, thinking back to it, probably thinks he probably could have come off the bag and blocked it at least.
Yeah, more experienced first baseman may have done that. I guess he was thinking he had a shot at him, so he wanted to stay in the bag. And then it looked like Votto did get in front of him. Boy, Welke gets nailed here. Oh, you could hear that one.
Marshall's the lefty. LeCure is the right-hander. And that tall, lanky fella in the background plays Aroldis Chapman.
Odds are you're going to see him today.
Here's the 1-1 pitch to Kratz. Outside, 2-1.
That's why this 2-0 lead here right now seems so huge if you can't do something about it. Cut into it or tie the game at least, because the odds are they won't use him in a tie game. Bailey up to 91 right now. I mentioned 125 his last time out.
Oh boy, off the glove of Homer Bailey. Gets it, throws in time. We said the Phillies have hit a number of balls hard today. That one was scorched off the bat of Eric Kratz.
Yeah, that was self-defense. He just threw the glove down. He's pointing to the palm of his glove that he's okay. Over to his bench, said, I'm all right. I hit the palm of my glove. Telling these tourists the same thing. They have hit a lot of balls hard today. It's one of those things. Here it is, fastball away, just throws a glove down. And it's always amazing the way pitchers have those instincts, the way they chase after those baseballs to save a hit. And here it comes. Oh, just knocked it down. And he knows he has Kratz running there, so he had time. Stayed under control. Good play.
Galvis is up. Howard's on deck to pinch hit. And it's 0-1. Galvis trying to get on any way he can to bring the tying run to the plate. And Ryan Howard.
And that left-hander up in the bullpen, too, just in case. Well aware that Howard's available today. Yeah, yesterday they got shut out, and it was meek. And they didn't hit hard yesterday. Today, they have hit, as you said, Tom, a lot of balls on the nose today. And that left fielder, Paul, has taken a couple hits away. If you look at the Phillies bullpen, because he plays every left-handed hitter really shallow on their offside. It's been amazing to look out there and see how shallow he is all day.
For years, StubHub has been the place to find great Phillies tickets. And this season, you can get more with your tickets thanks to StubHub Fan Rewards. So get to StubHub and grab your seats today.
See how shallow he is in left field? And he's been that way on every left-handed hitter today.
Leaves the left center field gap wide open.
Yeah, but he just figured more balls are going to dunk in front of me on their offside than to hit them over my head.
Well, if that's the last batter Homer Bailey faces today, he gets a strikeout to wrap up the 7th. Phillies go down in order. They've gone 16 straight innings without scoring a run. Today for great deals. Only a Honda is a Honda. By McDonald's, I'm loving it. And by Nissan. Sign and drive today only during Nissan's Sign and Drive event. Shop at ChooseNissan.com. Now some of the folks from the Wistar Institute joining the Fanatic for what is normally the dugout dance, but he's taking it into the Diamond Club. Fanatic can adapt to anything. Homer Bailey, I think, wanted to stay in for another game. He and Dusty Baker chatted in between innings, and Dusty's saying, you did your job. You went 7. You haven't allowed a run, 5 hits. We're going to go to the bullpen.
And I got a real well-rested bullpen working right now. So, and they could maybe use the left-hander. Well, we'll see. The Phillies do have Howard on the bench, and they may want to keep him there.
Well, Broxton is starting to throw for the Reds. Justin DeFreitas takes over for Pettibone.
Yeah, they're going to use Broxton. He's their 8th inning guy, I guess, and they have Chapman after him.
How about Pettibone today? 2 runs, 1 run earned. 3 walks, 4 strikeouts.
He was real good.
And the first pitch is fouled by Phillips. But it's 0-1. Pettibone had 1-2-3 innings, so he pitched well with base runners on. And he never got frazzled, which is what we've always talked about with him. Everything is steady as she goes.
Yeah, and pitching under all the pressure, too, of not having any runs, where you can't make many mistakes. That's a tough way to pitch.
1 ball, 1 strike to Phillips. He's 0 for 3. And it's 2-1. Dodgers are shutting out the Braves 1-0. That one's just really underway. It's the top of the second.
They had a rain delay
down in Atlanta.
Had a game rain out in New York today.
Oh yeah, the Yankees Blue Jays game. Well, Lakewood was rained out too.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got lucky. Just rains north of here.
Phillips with a base hit to left center field. And a leadoff single here in the 8th. And speaking of Brandon Phillips, it's time now for a Hyundai Defensive Play of the Game.
He and Jimmy Rollins are really good friends. Well, not so much after that. That's one of the balls we were talking about. They have hit a bunch of balls right on the nose today, but Brandon Phillips is so athletic. Rollins Gold Glove winner and just goes up. That was a no-brainer for him. Hyundai Defensive Play of the Game.
A hit that Phillips just picked up was the 8th of the day for the Reds.
Well, you have to have your bullpen shut it down right now. Even though when you're not scoring, 2 runs seems almost insurmountable. 3 or 4 with Chapman sitting out there. Now you're talking insurmountable.
Well, yesterday the Phillies trailed 3-0 going into the 6th, and then the Reds scored a run to make it 4-0. There's Chapman. Then they blew it open with 4 in the 8th and 2 in the 9th inning.
Marlins, as Tom mentioned earlier, have lost so many games, and they have a 2-1 lead now with 2 outs and the bases loaded in the 9th by Arizona. They're just hanging on, trying to snap that losing streak you mentioned. Fred is trying to be some guy to come up here, get somebody out. They're just looking for anybody out of that bullpen to come in and get people out consistently, other than Papelbon.
Out toward right field, Lance Nix into the alleyway. It sounded like Bruce broke his bat. It wasn't deep, and Nix makes the catch. Every time the Phillies retire the opposition 1-2-3, which they've done once today, Comcast will make a contribution to Phillies charities. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports, giving you all your favorite sports all year long. Well, with Broxton warming up, at 1 out here in the 8th. Todd Frazier, who's 2 for 3, picked up an RBI his last time up.
Maybe the Phillies can perform some of their Broxton magic here.
They did the other night to win game 1.
Custon coming in basically throwing fastballs right now. Almost all the same velocity, right around 93. There's Broxton. Ballpark has not been kind to him.
Phillips has not successfully stolen a base this year. That run, as Wheels just mentioned, it's important to keep that base runner out of scoring position.
Yeah, and try to keep this game to 2 because you get 1 base runner and here comes a tie and run up at home.
Phillips broke, then stopped. Ground ball toward third. Galvis will get 1. Can they turn 2? In time to get Frazier. 5-4-3 around the horn. All started by Freddie Galvis. And DeFreitas pitches a scoreless 8th inning. No runs, 1 hit, and nobody left. Frazier just reached out, made contact, and Galvis and Utley took care of it from there. Take a look at the Subway in-game winning box score. And the Cincinnati Reds, who won yesterday 10-0, shutting out the Phillies here 2-0. They've gotten a run by Joey Votto, an RBI by Todd Frazier, and the home run by Jay Bruce. That's essentially their offense. And they did that against Jonathan Pettibone, who again pitched well. Pettibone has allowed 3 earned runs or less in each of his outings this year. First rookie to do that since Ben Rivera from the 9th of June till the 19th of August '92.
Well, some fans rooting for a rally here. The Reds had the game where they won it. Their starter did a great job, and now they're to their 8th and 9th inning guys with a lead on the road. And it's up to Broxton to get him to Chapman. The Phillies hope to allow that not to happen, maybe.
Well, it'll be Kevin Franzen who will lead it off against Jonathan Broxton. Mentioned the Phillies have not scored a run against the Reds in 16 consecutive innings. Well, the streak is kind of the same against Homer Bailey. Bailey has not allowed a run against the Phillies now in 15 straight innings.
Well, get a base runner here and get inside his head quick.
Franzen, a .258 hitter. Towards center field. It's pretty well hit, but looks like Chu's going to track it down a step from the track. Now to the top of the order for Jimmy Rollins.
Well, that give Broxton a little relief right there and make him take a deep breath, and he can get the leadoff guy out. Because you get the leadoff man on there, and then all of a sudden, you know, it gets into a guy's head like, here we go again.
Now, if Rollins gets on and Howard, they decide to pitch hit Howard for Revere, well, then maybe things will get in his head a little bit.
Yeah, there's no left-hander up. This is Broxton's inning.
Reds acquired Broxton last year from the Kansas City Royals. He had 23 saves with the Royals. Last year he was 3-3 in 25 games for the Reds, a 2.82 earned run average. Inside, 2-0 to Rollins. The Reds signed him to a 3-year contract that'll take him through the 2015 season to be the setup man for Chapman, although they signed him thinking he would be the closer this year, because they were thinking about having Chapman start,
which was never a real good idea.
2-0 the count to Rollins.
Got to take here, I think.
And Rollins whacks it foul. It's 2-1.
As I said, that even if you hit a home run, you're down by 1. Because the most important thing you want to do is get the tying run on base here. Plus he hit it off his foot. Marshall standing around out there, but he's not throwing. He's the big left-hander.
I would think if Rollins gets on and Howard pinch hits, they'll bring Marshall in. Be interesting to see. Inside 3-1.
Yeah, he threw last inning, so it's not like he has to throw a whole lot of pitches to get ready.
Revere has 2 hits. He's on deck right now. 3-2 to Rollins with 1 out here in the bottom of the 8th. Late on that 94-mile-an-hour fastball, was up a little bit, and it remains 3-2.
This guy just going to keep pumping fastballs in this spot.
Broke his bat, slowly hit left side. Frazier charges, and Rollins is out by half a step. And they'll let Ben Revere bat with 2 outs here in the bottom of the 8th. Antonio Bastardo is up in the bullpen. You would assume he's going to pitch the 9th inning for the Phillies. You got Paul, left-hander, scheduled to lead it off for Cincinnati. 0-1 the count to Revere.
Yeah, they don't have to pinch hit for a position player unless they feel the guy's a better defensive player because they have the lead.
Revere hits it to the right side. Votto backhanded play. Broxton can't get to the bag. Oh, he made a wonderful snag to pick that one out of the dirt, but give Revere credit for hustling up the first base line.
Yeah, and Votto did not do a good job of leading Broxton on that. I don't know whether he got a late break over there or not. Maybe we can tell, but he throws it behind him. See, when he throws it behind him, that's really hard for a pitcher. He does an amazing job, for as big as he is, to almost get Ben Revere. Here's a look. Does he break right away? Yeah, he broke right away. That was Votto. That one's on Votto with a poor lead to the pitcher over there. And thankfully, Ben Revere's all right, because those head first slides, not good.
He dove right into the bag.
You see how the hand goes in with all that force, and that's how they hurt themselves.
That base hit for the Phillies, their 6th of the day. And Michael Young, who's 0 for 3. He's grounded out twice. He's flat out to right. And he takes way upstairs.
Looking for silver linings in the game. Revere's hit the ball. I didn't see the one he hit down the line. Did he hit that one hard? The third time?
No, not
okay.
at all.
Well, he's hit 3 out of 4 balls hard today then.
But he used his speed because he just chopped at it up the third base line. And even that ball he hit in the 3rd inning. Well, that's 3 of the 4, as you said. Yeah. The ball he hit in the 3rd, where he lined out to center, he hit that ball right on the nose.
Right. And that ball was hit hard just now to Votto. He's trying to jump a fastball right there, maybe tie the game or get an extra base hit, and couldn't stop. Broxton will supply some power if he threw a fastball away to him, and he could hit it to right or right center. Marshall just standing out there in their bullpen with Utley on deck. Boy, good hitters count here.
Two and two the count. There goes Revere. Pitches inside. They won't make a throw. They just scored a stolen base for Revere. That's his 8th of the season. Papelbon's starting to stir in the Phillies bullpen. Phillies have not scored a run in their last 16 innings.
And base hit here they will.
They lost 10-0 yesterday. And they've been shut out through 7 today. Now 7 2/3. Crowd of 41,009 on hand today. 3-2, 2 outs. Runner at second. The pitch to Michael Young. Inside, ball 4. The tying run is at first. Now let's see what Dusty Baker's going to do with Chase Utley. Yep, Baker's going to come up the stairs. And it looks like they're going to go to Marshall, the left-hander, to face Chase Utley.
Broxton can't get through the inning. This place, something happens all the time to him.
Well, there's the signal from Dusty Baker. So Broxton's afternoon is done. His line is not complete. He goes 2/3, allows a hit, walks 1, doesn't strike a batter out. This is an AT&T call to the bullpen. The Phillies got a threat going. They're at the bottom of the 8th. The Fanatic, it's Comcast Fanatic About Reading Night, a Fanatic children's book, free to fans 14 and under. There's the children's book, Phillie Phanatic's Hall of Fame Journey. Purchase tickets at Phillies.com for the series against the Milwaukee Brewers. Chase Utley will be the hitter. Utley will face Sean Marshall. Marshall got Utley on strikes in Friday night's ball game. He's 0-1 with a 3.00 ERA. This will be his 10th game. Lefties are hitting 143 against him, or I should say 100 against him. Overall, the opposition's hitting 143. So the Phillies have two lefties due up in Chase Utley and Dominic Brown. Chase and Ryan Howard both have struggled against left-handed pitching this year. Part of the problem the Phillies have had. Of the home runs Chase has hit, he has 7. One of those home runs is against a left-hander. They'll take a base hit here to make it a 2-1 ball game.
Phillies 0 for 6, runners in scoring position today. 5 LOBs to this point. Change it all right now.
Yeah, with those 5 LOBs, 4 of the 5 have been in scoring position. And they've got a runner in scoring position here. They've got Revere at second, Young at first.
Playing the shortstop, he's tourist behind the bag, way off the line with the third baseman Frazier. See, and then where the first, second, Votto and Phillips are.
Chase lines one toward left center field. That's going to drop in for a base hit. Revere will score. It's a 1-run game. And the scoreless streak is over. It's a 2-1 Reds lead as Utley picks up the RBI.
Well, he came right out. Wasn't going to let Marshall get a hunt of him if he could help him. Didn't hit it real hard, but good job by Chase. He put it in play and looped it out there, and they finally scored. Well, they're 1 down with two outs. There it is, a breaking ball. Not a bad pitch, really, by Marshall. He probably was a little higher than he wanted it, out over the plate, and a good job of just looping it in going the other way with it.
All right, so this scoreless streak went 16 2/3 over the last couple of ball games. They had one of 20 innings, 20 straight innings earlier this year, from the 3rd to the 5th of May. Let's see if they can now tack on 1, 2, 3 more. Dominic Brown, lefty on lefty. He's done pretty well against left-handers this year. They play him to pull on the left side, and Brown lifts one to right field, playable for Bruce, and that'll do it for the 8th inning. The Phillies do score a run, but they leave a couple. Chase Utley's RBI single makes it a 1-run game. We've completed 8 here at South Philly. We go to the 9th. The Reds lead it 2-1. Phillies postgame show. Get their unique breakdown of today's game and the entire series with the Reds. Plus, live clubhouse reports from Marty Bystrom. That's next on the Phillies postgame show, live from Sugar House Casino. Top of the ninth inning, it's 2-1 Reds on top. Derek Robinson is going to pinch hit against Antonio Bastardo instead of Xavier Paul batting against the left-hander. Bastardo 1-1 at 2.70 earned run average.
And they got to play up a little bit for this guy because he can really run if he were to bunt. There's the numbers on Bastardo, who's struggled.
Freddie Galvis even with the bag at third. Michael Young same at first. And Robinson shows bunt, takes a strike. It's 0-1.
And they would love to get another run. They're going to hit. They have that 8-0 hitter next with who they can bunt if they could get this guy on, because they'll hit for the pitcher. Chapman's starting to crank it up out there in the bullpen. Always looks like he's all legs when you see him. He is. He's got some extension.
He just blew a save against the Marlins the other day. It was his first blown save of the season. So he's 8 of 9 in save opportunities. 0-2 pitch to Robinson. Ground ball toward the hole, a base hit. They had him buried. No balls and 2 strikes, and now you have to keep an eye on him if you're Eric Kratz. Even though Hannigan's up there, he may just bunt him into scoring position. Maybe they'll give him a pitch or two.
0-2 hung the slider. Yeah, they can do a few things here now. As you say, they could bunt right away. They can let him run and then bunt him over. And another run with Chapman out there is huge. Here it is, 0-2. He had just buried him with a slider the pitch before that. Hangs one.
Hannigan is 0 for 3. He's averaged down to 155.
I do a throw over. Nope. Yeah, there it is. You figure they'd throw over right away just to see if Hannigan shows bunt. He didn't do anything.
Robinson last year stole 23 bases at AAA. He had 55 the year before, 50 the year before that, 69 3 years ago. Hannigan bunts toward first. It's a beauty. And Michael Young throws him out. The sacrifice is successful. One away.
And they just played it safe. Now, Bastardo's really slow sometimes on the mound, and they're going to come in and talk to him right now and remind him about that guy at second base. Don't forget about him or he'll steal third. And right away, Chase Utley, look, the whole infield's coming in. They're all going to now remember. And Freddie's probably going to say, here comes Rich Doobie out too.
Well, Neftali Soto made his major league debut yesterday.
This is a scouting report that Doobie will bring out on Soto, who is a big, strong, potential power hitter that they really like.
Soto came into the season with 90 minor league home runs, including 31 I should say, back in 2011.
Shows you how much they want another run, huh? That they'll give up Chu's defense with a lead. Oh, I'm sorry. Of course, we're batting in the 9 hole right now. I jumped.
You did.
I jumped the ship right there. Excuse me.
They decided to give up Xavier Paul's defense.
Yeah,
to
well,
put,
they give up his
Robinson up.
That's all right. And he can run too.
Soto is just 24 years old. Mentioned he made his major league debut yesterday.
He looks strong.
He came in as a defensive replacement, so this is his first AB. And he rips one toward third. Diving, sprawling play by Galvis. He throws him out at first. Robinson is fortunate. He'll cross over to third. 2 outs.
Yeah, he's either fortunate or that was great base run. It's probably a combination. He could read that he was deep when he had to catch that thing, but I think he thought that was through. And you have to really wait until it gets through. Freddie had just taken a peek over there, too. How quick is he? You watch the replay, and his head had just turned to take a little look at second, and here comes a baby at him, and he catches like it's nothing. And Chu, of course, is still in the game.
He is, with a runner at third and 2 outs.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they'll get his bat, and they'll still have his defense. He is 0 for 3 today. His average at .311. Take strike one. It's 0-1.
Huge out right here to get this and move on to try and deal with Chapman with a 1-run deficit.
Good spot with that 93-mile-an-hour fastball. And tight a little bit.
Man, he threw it up to him, too. Most left-handed hitters want the ball down. Now he's really vulnerable for breaking the ball away if you feel confident in it. And the Kratz can block it.
1 ball, 2 strikes, now to Chu. Runner at third. Does throw it away. It was a fastball, though. And it's 2-2. Kratz was fortunate he caught that ball. And a call, strike 3. He went back to the slider, and he got him looking. No runs, 1 hit, and 1 man left over at third. Bastardo got a little tense, but he takes us to the bottom of the 9th with the Phils down 1. Aroldis Chapman to try to win this series. Robinson stays in the ball game, and he'll play left field. Chapman 3-1, a 2.41 earned run average. Don't forget, coming up immediately after this ball game, it's the post-game show. Larry Bowa is on set with John Clark. And that's coming up as soon as this one comes to a close. Let's hope they get a chance to talk about a Phillies victory. Chapman will face Delman Young, who will pinch hit for the Phillies. Pinch hit for Lance Nix. There's Young. Then Eric Kratz and Freddie Galvis. Those are the scheduled hitters for the Phillies here in the bottom of the 9th. And they do have Ryan Howard available. It would be a tough call for Charlie Manuel to send Ryan Howard up against somebody like an Aroldis Chapman. Mentioned Chapman in his last outing did blow a save. He had 8 straight saves before he blew one against the Miami Marlins. That was on Thursday. The Phillies have not seen him in this series. That's because the Phillies won game 1 and then lost game 2 10-0. Delmon Young, a 208 hitter, 1 home run, 4 runs batted in. He has 10 hits and 48 at-bats. Takes outside, 1-0.
He'll stand there and take him until he throws one over.
He has faced Chapman. He's 0 for 1 against him. Now the 2-0 pitch. 3-0. 94. He's lost a little bit, Will. He's at 94.
He's trying to get that one over.
Ball 4. Tying run is aboard.
Well, he was all over the place with those pitches.
Cliff Lee is going to pitch run for Young. In fact, he meets him at the first base bag. All a day's work for Delmon Young.
Yeah,
4 pitches and he's aboard. And then lifted for Cliff Lee.
Give him some credit for that at bat, too.
Absolutely.
Just stand there until this guy throws you a strike. You don't want to get behind him, but you know, maybe that would happen with just it.
Kratz is 0 for 2. He entered the game in the top of the 3rd when Carlos Ruiz left with a strained right hamstring.
They do not think he's going to bunt.
But he doesn't show a bunt. He takes a strike, 0-1.
It's not an easy guy to bunt against with his velocity either.
So after 4 straight out of the strike zone, he throws a strike to Kratz.
To make that move with Delmon Young because you still have Mayberry left to play the outfield if you can get this one tied up. Maybe he's too strong right now. He's well rested. Got kind of a bemused look on his face. There's Mayberry. Well, why can't I throw it over right now? That's not fair. Comes out and drops one of them on you. You know, that's not right. All those fastballs, and I think, well, you know, if he throws me a breaking ball, he'll miss and I'll get ahead, and he got it over.
Kratz is 0 for 1 against Aroldis Chapman. 1-2 the count. The Phillies down by 1 with Lee at first. Got a fastball and he fouled it back. Toyota Major League Scoreboard, an update from Atlanta where the Dodgers now lead at 2-0. Adrian Gonzalez has both RBIs for the Dodgers. Dodgers are in last place in the West. The Braves in first place in the East.
What a play by Hannigan, huh?
That's 99 on that one hopper.
How'd he catch it? You know, as a catcher, you can anticipate breaking ball in the dirt. You don't anticipate 99 fastball in the dirt. Look at that thing caught him. Look at it rocking back. That was amazing to watch him recoil on that thing.
Oh, no. Got Lee picked off.
Oh,
that's the risky run when you have a pitcher who's inexperienced.
Where's he
running?
Where's he going?
I don't know.
Oh.
1-3-6-1 on the putout.
There's just no reason to even move here. Wow. Well, at least he didn't get hurt.
Always the competitor. You saw his reaction as soon as he was tagged out.
Well, he knows he's not going anywhere in that spot. He's just staying there.
Here's the 2-2 in the dirt, 3-2.
And you've got a Chapman who's a little bit off right now. You know, we get a couple base runners here, you don't know. You would have bunted Galvis if you get first and second, nobody out.
In the air to left field. This is going to tie this ball game up. Bang! Erik Kratz's solo home run. It's a 2-2 game here in the bottom of the 9th inning. And yes, the Phillies would have won it, but at least they've tied it against Aroldis Chapman.
Well, Kratz is such a good fastball hitter, and he got a fastball 98. See, Lee just shaking his head. He knows. Got a 98 down a little bit too, and ooh, did he? And that's a home run off the bat, way out. That's pretty exciting. That would have been some walk off. There it is. See, it's down. Crushes that thing. Chapman will supply some of the power, Tommy.
He knew it too. You see him flip that bat.
That one had to feel like you didn't even hit it as square as he hit that thing.
First home run since the 21st of April. Now Galvis is up, 1 out, bottom of the 9th. Phillies have tied it at 2. And it's 1 ball and no strikes to Galvis.
Give DeFreitas and Bastardo credit here too, because they pitched those 2 scoreless innings that made this possible. We talked about how important it was to keep it to 1 run at home. Here we go.
Check swing.
He's going to beat himself up. You don't know he's going to hit a home run there, but you could just see Chapman was scuffling a little bit today.
Second straight blown save.
Yeah. I'll give him a little concern. Sometimes, you know, you get a little bit over-rested as a closer. And he would look like he was too strong right out of the chute. Good job by Delman Young, too, to take that walk to get it all started.
And Galvis sends one down the left field line. It is gone! A home run for Freddie Galvis! Just inside the pole, and the Phillies win it! Wow! Back-to-back home runs against Aroldis Chapman. And the Phillies have won it 3-2 here in the bottom of the 9th inning.
My goodness. Look at Cliff Lee. He's the happiest guy in the ballpark. Well, Freddie is. But next to Freddie, Cliff Lee's the happiest guy in the ballpark. Well, all the things. You beat Aroldis Chapman on back-to-back bombs. Come on. He's still trying to shake it off, Tom.
Well, Cliff Lee can finally smile. Everybody can smile here in Philadelphia. The Phillies have won the series because of those 2 guys right there in dramatic fashion, Erik Kratz, Freddie Galvis, and we decided that both would settle in with Murph. Murph, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. 2 very excited guys, and amongst a team of very excited guys. Erik, first of all, talk about your at bat. Obviously, you got a fastball that you did not miss.
Yeah, I was just looking for something that could hit out over the plate, and he gave me one earlier in that bat that I missed, and I was able to stay on that one.
Freddie, you get a chance then to come up and really pick up your teammate Cliff Lee in a lot of sense too, and you just turned on one.
Oh yeah, well, you try to, to play hard to the end, and today, thank God, my boy here got a homer, got another one. We won. We need it.
Yeah, big picture, guys. Obviously, winning a series at home so important as you head out on a long road trip.
For sure. Anytime you can win the last game to go on a road trip, but the whole series, that's huge. We never gave up. It's awesome.
Congratulations, guys. Thanks, guys.
Freddie Galvis, Erik Kratz, our Chevrolet players of the game. Boy, total elation after what has been a quiet 2 days offensively for the Phils. They erupt for 2 runs on back-to-back solo home runs by Erik Kratz and Freddie Galvis. And there are W.B. Mason deliveries of the game.
There's Erik Kratz talking about looking for something out a little bit, down, and he hit it way out. Here's Freddie. That pitch was up. He's a high ball hitter, especially right-handed. And he threw some hook on that thing, too. Looked like he had hooked it too much when he hit it. He didn't. Kept it inside the pole. That's the best finish of the year by far.
By far. What a celebration here at Citizens Bank Park. Who would have thunk it watching the first 8 innings? They're celebrating for everyone. Freddie Galvis, Eric Kratz, Cliff Lee, and all of Philadelphia. Phillies win it. We'll be back right after this.